Hello to all the Atlanta United fans. My name is Jurgen Damm, and you are watching Scarves and Spike, an Atlanta United podcast.
This is our Lady United match reaction podcast. It's a Lady United guys get a win against FC Cincinnati 4-2 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Sunday Night Soccer. Sydney, Tyler, and Henry with you. Henry playing a little bit hurt on this episode, but he is with us after his West Coast swing after graduating from college. So just about the gangs all here. Just about the whole gangs all here. Tommy's unable to make it. Tommy's unable to make it this episode.
Tommy's injured.
Tommy's
out. I was questionable.
Yeah. But we are here to talk about LA United's win. This feels weird to talk about.
Wait, you said a win?
I said a win.
Win?
Henry, 3 points.
No way.
3 points.
I feel like it hasn't happened in 2 months.
Feels that way, right?
I get that same feeling. So we'll talk about that in depth. By the way, if you're watching our MLS Monday podcast or listening to our Apple Podcast, Spotify, or iHeart, if you're listening after our live show, definitely appreciate you jumping over and coming on board with us to hang as we talk about Atlanta's win against Cincinnati and then get you ready for Atlanta United against Orlando City. Against Orlando City. There's no the. It's just Orlando City. Gentlemen, in the word, and Henry, we'll start with you. In a word, your thoughts on the match against FC Cincinnati. One word.
Encouraging. I'll go with that.
Encouraging.
One. Yeah.
Tyler, what's your one word to describe the match?
Drunk. Butt clenching.
Is that that's 4 words?
I'm giving one for everybody else too. Y'all can use any of this. Hey, Jets, you did it.
Minus tense.
That's good.
You know, especially in the second half. And again, this team still can't put a full 90 minutes together. That being said, you give yourself a 2-goal lead. You come back. Of course, you give it up twice. Then you come back to win. So it's a big step in the right direction. Tyler, I'll put you on the spot since you were there.
Let's go.
So when you walked into the stadium, when you saw the lineup, what was your first reaction? We were at, of course, the City by Hilton Hotel doing our pre-match show. Thanks to all who showed up, by the way. But when you saw the lineup, when it came out during our show, what was your first reaction to it?
Well, I mean, if you were watching the show yesterday, you would have seen. But I was okay with it. I like
passive aggressive.
I know, right? I like the 3-5-2. I really do, or the variation therein, right? Because we can nitpick. You have a back three center backs. We'll get it that simple. We have 3 center backs, and from there, guys are allowed to bomb forward. There's discipline in making sure somebody stays back. In this case, Slish was very much like that kind of true number 6. And I was excited because, I wanted Jay Fortune to play. Jay Fortune needs to be playing every minute he possibly can.
Right.
Atlanta's midfield, if it's going to be 2 true midfielders most of the time, you need somebody to complement the maybe a little more of the cohesiveness, the experience that a guy like Slish or Click brings, but they're not the fastest guys. Jay, and to a degree Muyumba, as long as he can be consistent, brings you the legs, the fast pace, the ability to run for most of the game. explosiveness, goal dangerous, and a little bit of, control. I think Jay Fortune is one of those guys that has, over the past calendar year, truly raised his game in terms of just being a true quote unquote box to box midfielder. And I say that like he can control the ball, he can control things well. He's learning how to control the tempo of a game. But you can't rely on a guy like Bartek Slish or Click. They're just too slow for the way that Atlanta wants to play. So there's a pairing there. So when the lineups came out, I was excited about that. That was my biggest thing, is, seeing how that midfield worked. So when that pairing came out, I was thrilled.
Yeah, and we were talking about it. One of the questions we were asking is, if you're running dial, are you just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks? And I made the point that nothing has been sticking so far. Sunday was pretty much the closest you've got. Well, I mean, not the closest because you won, but Sunday, I feel like the pieces kind of all came together from the tactical standpoint. Was it perfect? No. I mean, you give up absolutely tremendous amount of shots. Not all of them are target, of course, but you give a lot of shots. And one of the conversation points is it's not sustainable for this team, not sustainable for any team to continue to give it this many shots and expect to come away with just 2 goals allowed, 2 goals conceded in the second half. So I think that part of the puzzle is what you need to talk about, what you need to improve on the training ground. But at this stage, you win a match. You win a match for the first time in nearly 2 months. You win a match to end an 8-game winless skid. And now you get things kind of back in the right direction and ahead of a derby against Orlando City. So the big question is, can you sustain it? Can you keep it going into Orlando City, going into the match you have this weekend against the Red Bulls? You can't get too high. You can't just say, hey, we won. This is going to be the norm for the rest of the season. But Derek Williams kind of brought a good point. You can't get too high. You have to turn the page. You have to get ready for the next match coming up against Orlando City on Wednesday.
Yeah. Look, I think the reason I said encouraging for this one is because you saw kind of a different mood in these players when they came out. You saw a different intensity in their play. And you saw them come together in different ways. Jay Fortune, look, we've talked about him a lot on the show.
Yeah.
Dax McCarty has been very, very high on him. A lot of people that, really, really know ball around this team and the league have been high on Jay Fortune. And for good reason. He's increasingly becoming, press proven. He's just so good with the ball. There's that compilation that Atlanta United James puts out after every game. We put out the Jay Fortune compilation, all touches. And I mean, obviously the goal he gets in the game is a good thing to have, but I think more impressive was his work to find ways to connect with other players and drag defenders kind of out of position and operate in tight spaces. There was one play that really stood out to me where he juked out a player on like the touch line and then turned around and backheeled it to Miggy.
Right.
And I'm like, that takes some awareness, and it also takes some balls, some courage to do that. Because if you don't, if it goes wrong, then people are going to roast you on Twitter because like why'd you backheel it there, like whatever. But he got it right. He's been playing very well, and to me, he's been kind of the highlight of this midfield and what has been a pretty bad season. And I think that Slish Fortune kind of double pivot in the midfield, I guess you call it a midfield 5 because the wingbacks were kind of more in the midfield, and got people asking, what is double pivot? To explain it very quickly, basically it's in midfield where you have those 2 players that are in a little bit of a deeper role. Usually they're CDMs, but in this case, You have Slish, which is the more defensive midfielder, and then Tyler's pulling out the tactics board. Slish, who plays more as a defensive midfielder, and then Fortune, who tends to get up a little bit more, is a little bit more of a box-to-box. You had them, then you had Moranchuk a little bit in front of them as an attacking midfielder. So they created that double pivot, and Tyler is showing you now.
So they're essentially moving at the same time, is what you're saying.
Tyler Guardiola, yeah.
Which we can't see on the audio.
Okay. People watch live. So
go ahead, Coach Tyler.
I mean, you're on board. I was just trying to give some visual representation.
Break it down.
Yeah.
Break it
No,
down.
I like that. I'm a visual learning too, so go ahead.
When you're playing out of the back or in defense, I mean, really it's when you're playing forward. But yeah, I mean, you've got the ball playing out to, you've got options, right? Either right, left, or the midfield.
Yeah.
But especially when you're playing against a team that's going to pressure you, you've got to have angles here, and you don't want to always play out wide, which is what Atlanta has done in the past. You need options here. So you kind of end up having your number 6, your number 8 working as a pivot, kind of as I think somebody said it in the chat, as a seesaw, to create angles when, the ball's played out to, let's say, Slish. You've got, in this case, Jay dropping back a little bit to create an angle, and then Slish moving up a little bit, and then the wing backs moving up a little bit to continue to create the angles, but it all starts right here in the middle.
In the middle. So it's like one moves up, the other moves down, and then kind of vice versa. Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Easy enough, I guess.
That's a very simple way of
There's some more complexities. And for example,
it's way
when
like
the team has run a back 4, you'd have sometimes the defensive midfielder kind of dropping back to form the back 3 and build up. There's a lot of complexities in it, but basically, the double pivot is meant to support you in that build up, and it's usually those 2 kind of deeper midfielders. Yes, think of triangles. Triangles are a perfect explanation. Making sure that the player on the ball has 2 options to pass to at all times, so that even if you have pressure and they are covering the one option, the other one's always free. And that's why, kind of, I guess you could call it the meta of build-up right now, is that the goalkeeper will come out and initiate that build-up and be an active part of it, because they give you automatically a numbers advantage. And so that is just scratching the surface of soccer tactics. And I don't want to get too tactical into this because we have a whole bunch of 2 games that we have to talk about.
Yeah.
But that is the basics of that. And if y'all want like more deeper explanations, I guess Tyler and I could do a Patreon thing in the future.
Why do you say Tyler and I? Why can't I participate?
Oh, you can too. It's just that so since Tyler brought out the whole tactics board and we were kind of going in on that.
I feel like I'm being left out here.
No, dude, we can all do it. We can have a whole tactics episode. Tactics
you're going to be the real visual representation, because you're going to get up and run while we explain everything that's happening.
Oh gosh. Let me get over this cold first.
If one of us runs, it's not going to be me. I'll tell you that much.
All are running in the media.
This is Tyler and I practicing for the media game. See, because you don't play.
Right. Next year.
Next year? All right, I'll hold you to that.
No, but let's talk about Jay Fortune. I mean, he's come up already, and he had a tremendous game. Of course, the goal, but I think he's getting dogged on social media. I don't know why. I think it's his best game in a Atlanta United uniform. And Ronnie Dyla said in the press conference, Jay Fortune has been Atlanta United's best player over the past 5 to 6 matches. And Tyler, to your point, you got to keep him on the field as much as he can, and he rewarded you with a tremendous performance. He got a standing ovation from the crowd. And kind of build out to a larger point, Ronnie Dyla said, I want to see more homegrowns step up that we can build this team around. Named Noah Cobb, named Luke Brennan, Efraim Morales, guys like that. He said, Jaden Hibbert, Will Riley. He wants to. Riley certainly, he's an academy player, but not a homegrown. But I certainly say where you're coming from. But he wants to build the team around players like that. And Fortune has really, like he said, Tyler, come into his own, gets the goal. And I remember one moment he was near the left touchline, started pumping up the crowd, and just he said he doesn't do things like that too often, but when the time calls for it, he does it. And that's great to see. That's what you want to see. You want to see that passion. You want to see that determination from a homegrown player. And I think a very well-deserved man of the match performance for Jay Fortune.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for Ronnie Dalla to come out and say, and this is one thing outside bar real good. I love this about Ronnie Dalla.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to just say it like it is. He will be blatant. He'll be honest. Came out and called the team soft last week, and that motivated the players the right way. Because there was a lot of talk all week about like, oh, was this a stupid idea for him to come out and say this about his own players? I liked it at the time. I like it even more now. But it's a risk. I get that. So you then saw, I think, a little bit of that dog get pulled out. Derek talked about it. I mean, y'all mentioned it a minute ago, but Derek talked about how, I mean, he took that personally, and I think a lot of the players took it personally. But
the Michael Jordan meme.
Yeah, exactly. Jay, for him to call Jay the best player on the team over the past 5 to 6 matches, I think is a massive statement for, and I want to say that kid. He's not a kid anymore. It just feels like we've seen him grow up. But I mean, it's impressive because he's playing with maturity. He's playing with excitement. He seems to be having fun. I mean, celebration when he scores the goals. He's been on our show before. We've seen him. His personality. He jokes around a lot. He's a cool guy. He's a mature guy.
Yeah,
and he's doing things that are maybe a little bit elevated over last year. He's pulling different tools out of the toolbox. Right, the repertoire has increased for sure, and that should be motivating to everybody. Right? We talk about the kids are hungry. Let them play. I went on a whole tangent yesterday about that.
Sure.
Jay Fortune's one of them. Build the team around these guys and then find a way to keep them here. I understand, wanting to move guys on. Caleb Wiley, who was apparently in the house last night, by the way. You understand why, these guys want to jump over to Europe. Totally get that. It's been tough, to be fair, for an academy or a pipeline as good as Atlanta's for them to keep guys long-term. But at some point, you've really got to start looking at the future and saying like, hey, we need to figure out what we're going to do to lock this guy down. And I saw, I think Bruno talking about it in the chat earlier, you can make Jay a U22 if you wanted to. And that's a way to where you could pay him significantly more money and lock him down for longer term if you wanted to. So there's options there. But at the end of the day, Jay Fortune needs to be playing. He brings something to this team, not just the attack, not just the defense, but overall. And Dax McCarty, been on the show, talked about it. He has nothing but the highest praises for him. And fans are seeing that now.
Dax McCarty.
I mean, MLS legend.
An average midfielder.
So for him to come out and just say that, I was in that room last year in Orlando when they lost. And one of the last things Dax McCarty said as an Atlanta United player was, Jay Fortune is the future of this team. And I think now fans are really, really catching on to that and saying, hey, we see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Got to lock him down. You got to make sure that you can have him for the next, as long as he wants to stay at this club, you want to make sure that he's happy and that he stays here. He hasn't reached his prime yet. It's crazy, but he hasn't reached his prime yet. I mean, how old is he? He's 22. So this is where I would say,
right at that age. Yeah.
It's not a bad idea to put him in that U22 slot, as people are suggesting, because it does give you that flexibility and allows you to kind of say, hey, you've been performing well. We see you as an important piece going forward for this team. Here's your reward for that.
Right.
I think that would be a decent move, especially because, you have 2 slots open. The other one will most likely be open by the end of the year when Edwin Mosquera's contract ends, or if he's moved before them, which I don't really think he will be. But at some point, he'll be off that spot. You're not really using them right now. And even if you do use them, Chris Henderson and Garth Lagerwey have all talked about, those slots, they can be very valuable, but they're also a big risk. And as we're familiar, you're betting on potential. And sometimes that can be risky. A lot of this club's U22 signings over the past 5-ish years haven't really worked out. And so this at least gives you some flexibility in terms of how much you can pay him. You can make sure that, he's getting what he deserves.
Yeah.
And, you show that he's an important piece to this club, and that could be a motivating factor as well. I do agree, though, that he is the future of this club, and I'm excited for him in midfield to see him a little bit more. He has to absolutely play as much as he can for this team.
And let me kind of address the U22 thing. So he can sign a U22 contract since he's 22 years old right now. You have to be 22 years old or younger in the first year you're eligible to play in an MLS game. He already checked the box a few years ago, so he's good there. But he has to be 22 years old when he signs the contract. I'm just looking at the MLS rules and roster regulations just to get a sense of what are the regulations. He can occupy that U22 slot, a homegrown, I should say, can occupy that U22 slot through the year in which he turns 25. He has to be on his first or second contract. So this would be his second contract. But he's on an option year for 2026. So I certainly would hope Atlanta signs him to a long-term deal. Let me ask this from a different perspective, though. He said that Jay Fortune has been our best player within the past 5 or 6 matches. Is that kind of a message to other players to say, hey, you got to step your game up? You're getting kind of outpaced by the kid. Is that kind of a way of saying, hey, Jay's playing pretty good football at this point. We need everybody else to kind of step their game up. What do you guys think? Am I looking at that from a wrong angle, or is that kind of
no? I mean,
something that really does message that Ronnie Dye was sending.
Yeah. It should be a wake-up call. And I think this team needed a wake-up call. They needed a variety of wake-up calls. I've been hitting snooze on these wake-up calls for far too long now. I mean, I don't care how elevated and inflated your pride is. If you are a veteran player or a DP, you see the kid come in, the hometown kid, step in and do what, something like what Jay is doing. You naturally, unless something about you is broken, one, you should be excited for him, but two, you should elevate your own game.
Yeah.
Like, soccer players want to play soccer. And Jay Fortune, I mean, there was a point when it was like, because last year, Rob Valentino rated him super highly. Pineda rated him super highly. And then Ronnie Dyla comes in. And as we said it in the beginning of the season, before preseason, we talked about all these guys, especially these young guys, are going to have to earn their place again. And we saw that journey. We saw Jay Fortune maybe not get used as much as we felt he should have in the beginning of the season. But he has caught Dyla's eye. He has impressed him. And to be fair, like he said last night, a lot of these young guys have. So that should elevate the rest of the team. If you're not putting in 110% effort, you're going to get left out. Yeah. You're going to get left out. And I don't see a future unless there's some weird tactical mismatch in a game where you don't incorporate Jay Fortune in some way, shape, or form for significant minutes. I see him going the Caleb Wiley route to where he's more or less a locked-in starter for the significant future.
Sticking around, though, for the next few years rather than being sold.
I hope so. I asked Garth Lagerwey at the beginning of the preseason, just to verify, can you sign Jay Fortune? Because that was kind of the talk in the beginning of the season. Yeah. Can you sign him as a U22? And he said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And didn't shoot it down. So, I mean, there's definitely, it's potentially in the cards for sure.
You have until the end of the year to do it because his birthday, I think, is December 30th or something like that. And after you have to sign him when he's 22. But as Gray said in the chat, you can sign him through 2028 on that slot because the U22 rules state that you can have him on that contract until the season he turns 25.
Yep.
And $200K annual cap hit. It gets you to his prime basically, and at that point, the picture's probably clear of whether he wants to stay in MLS and kind of be an MLS lifer. And there's nothing wrong with that. That'd be awesome, and I think the club would be happy if he continues this progression. Would be happy to have him as a cornerstone of their build for the next several seasons. or if he wants to go to Europe. And a lot of players do. That's a normal thing. At that point, he'll probably be at the peak of his value. And so I think it's a win for the club in either situation. You know, Garth and Chris seem to be very, very cautious with these U22 slots anyways. They've both been open since this off season, and we don't know if they're going to be used this summer at all. We don't know if they have plans for them already. But like I said, it could be a way to reward him and entice him to stay at the club while also giving you some flexibility and giving you some options in terms of how much you can pay him and accounting against the cap and all of that.
Well, that's the thing. It's minimal cap hit. And he's shown this isn't a one-off thing. He's shown he deserves it, right? This is not like, oh, he just had a great game. We've seen his growth curve. We've seen, he's one. Noah Cobb's another. Noah Cobb's younger. He's got a little bit of time, but like, I think Noah Cobb could have slotted in right there with, for Matt Edwards and done just as well. Shout out to Matt Edwards. Dude's killing it. He had one concerning mistake last night. Whole team had a handful, but like, that's part of the growth. You expect that with this kind of stuff. So like, you've got a lot of these guys that Ronnie Dyla said last night, you need these guys to build the team around.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see how much of the future is now built around some of these quote unquote kids.
Yeah. Another promising performance from Jay, and hopefully more to come from him throughout the remainder of the season and really for years to come. Shall we talk about Sweetwater Brewing Company, guys, before we move forward? Sweetwater Brewing Company, proud supporter of Scars and Spikes. Thanks so much for Sweetwater Brewing Company for their support. Tyler, what are you drinking tonight, by the way? Are you drinking Sweetwater Brewing Company?
Straight up 420.
Straight up, you drinking a 420 pale ale?
Nice.
The original.
There you go. There you go.
We were thinking about if y'all are, I'll throw this out there really quick. If y'all are just joining and you didn't watch MLS Monday, thinking about doing a Patreon episode. Out of all the Sweetwater beers, what would be your starting 11? Well, who would be the striker?
How many beers do they have, though?
They have a lot. I would even go into some of the past beers that maybe they don't make anymore, too.
Right.
They have enough to make a starting 11. They probably have enough for a whole team sheet.
Yeah. Well, that list is on sweetwaterbrew.com. You can also see where to buy it as well. So go there. Thanks so much for their support, as always, at Scars and Spikes. Go to scarsandspikes.com for Atlanta United news analysis and opinion leading up to the Orlando match on Wednesday. We'll obviously be previewing that match against Red Bulls on Saturday as well. Every match coming up this season. There's also a link to our store, so you can support us there by buying merchandise. Patreon.com/scarsandspikes if you want to get involved there, starting at $1.17 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. You can get access to our Discord, access to our bonus content that we try to put out every single week, and also get merch discounts. Patreon.com/scarsandspikes. Forgetting something, I feel like. Oh, like and subscribe on YouTube if you are watching on YouTube, or if you enjoy our content on YouTube, like and subscribe on YouTube. And of course, like and subscribe, or just subscribe. Yeah, just subscribe. It's a podcast. You can't really like a podcast functionally, but subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart, and get our audio content delivered to your feed when it comes available.
Tell your friends, tell your family,
and your enemies,
Okay,
everybody.
Tell everyone.
Tell everybody. Tyler is deep in thought.
I am thinking a lot about what happened last night.
So,
what do we go with?
Let's talk about the big topic. First half, latte lot. Looks like an elbow to the midsection of Nick Hagelin. Hagelin fractures a rib, and collapsed lung, has to go to the hospital. FC Cincinnati put out a statement earlier on Monday saying that Hagelin is in good spirits, that he'll head back to Cincinnati when the time is right, when it is okay for him to do so. So definitely got to hear that. You don't want to see an opponent put in that situation. That obviously could have been a lot worse than it was. So good to hear that Hagelin is in good spirits. Guys, I keep watching it. I don't know where the red card is. Obviously, Cincinnati fans will think otherwise. I don't see it. I think it's just kind of a reflex reaction. I don't think there's any intent to injure the player at all, which is what you look for if it's a red card. I don't think there's serious foul play involved. If you look at the letter of the law, it's in football. I just don't. I think it's just he kind of goes for the ball, and by reflex, his elbow kind of, I don't know if it's elbow or his wrist or whatever, it hits Hagelin, and his rib. Hagelin goes down. He's down for a little bit. Eventually comes off injured in the first half. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Swarm of comments.
everybody in the
3,
chat.
2, 1.
From a purely unbiased standpoint, like, should Latte Lot been sent off for that challenge?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Why not? Why not?
It's not a red card. It's arguably a foul. It is. And first of all, I'll preface it by saying this, like, it's a crappy situation. Sometimes crap just sucks. Sometimes it happens. It was, first of all, and this was kind of what I put on Scarves and Spike's Twitter earlier, like, having spoken to Latte Lath since he's gotten here a handful of times, like, seeing him in the locker room, in press conferences, talking to him like one-on-one, that dude he doesn't come across as a malicious guy. He doesn't come across as a guy that would do something like that. I mean, he's got a family, got, young kids. Like, he's not what, because I see people calling him a thug and all this other stuff. I'm like, man, let's pump the brakes on that.
Stop.
Yeah, the hate is wild.
It happens.
Unacceptable.
This is a contact sport, totally unrelated to any of that last night. Alexei Miranchuk used his phrase about the game, not even talking about that incident, was, it's an aggressive sport. Now, that was his word, I mean, obviously English is not his first language, but this is a contact sport. And I think people forget that anytime there is any kind of contact, a card has to be thrown or somebody's going to be punished. If you take away the injury, and I pray for Nick, I pray that, like, he's totally fine. It seems like he's going to be good. You take away the injury, there's a little bit of frustration about this, and then it blows over. There's nothing there. But because you had what you had, you have a rough injury come out of it. I understand the frustration. I do. Because if the roles were reversed, we would all be like, do something, justice for whoever. Like, I get it. But he didn't come in, fist raised. He came in, first of all, Latte Lath runs faster than just about anybody in the league. That's a fact, right?
Yeah.
Hagelin steps in the way. You got a ball coming in. It's going to be an aerial duel. It takes a bounce. He's trying to give his teammate time to control that ball, turn, and play it back to the goalkeeper or wherever to stop Latte Lath from breaking loose. He steps in to kind of screen him out of the way. Latte Lath, who was clearly looking at the ball, kind of catches the vision of Hagelin in the way, puts his forearm out, and it just happens to go into his side. I think people are stuck on this one angle that because he went to go turn at the last moment, people are like, oh, he punched him. He didn't punch him.
No, absolutely not.
They just came together in a very unfortunate way. He got hit.
Incidental contact.
I can see it being a yellow, like I said. Absolutely. I could see it be called either way. And in this case, I mean, Cincinnati fans are irritated with the ref. Again, I'm not innocent of being very frustrated with pro referees in the past. It's not even about that for me. It's just about, like, guys, this was an accident. Like, it was not intentional. Don't sit there and, call a player a thug or all this name calling or everything else. It's unfortunate. Like,
uncalled for.
Atlanta fans, like, we're not sitting here saying that, like, screw Nick. Like,
right.
That's not what it is. Like, I feel for the guy. I know that's painful.
Yeah.
I know it sucks. And that's one of your best players. Absolutely. But sometimes there's nobody to blame, and that's okay. It just was an accident.
And I'll just say this real quick before, Henry, you jump in. So the poll reporter, who's Doug Robertson from the AGC, submitted questions on behalf of the Cincinnati media, and it came back from Guido Gonzalez Jr. that it was deemed not to be a foul. play was checked by VAR for potential red card, and it came back that there was nothing in it to justify being a red card. I think it's just wrong place, wrong time, and Tyler, to your point, there's nothing malicious in it. He's just incidental contact in this case. Hagelin just finds himself in the wrong place at the wrong time, and Latte Lot kind of meets him there, and unfortunately, Hagelin is forced out of the match early. So, and I'm interested in your take.
I will say really quick.
Yeah.
Nick stepped in the way. This was an intentional block by Nick, right? And it's fair. I mean, that's what you do, right? You screen a player so that your other player can
you
make
can
the
see
play.
him turning. Yeah, you can see him turning just a little bit.
Blindsided, at the 50-yard line by Latte Lot. Like, he was involved in the play. So
yeah,
there is that too. Like it. There's a lot of context here that I feel like is being missed out on the social media world.
Yeah. There were a lot of different angles and videos of this, and a lot of different ways to see it. And we had ourselves kind of a lengthy discussion in the Scarves and Spikes Discord of whether, is it an elbow? Is it, does he go after Hagelin? Which to me, he doesn't. To me, what I see is Latte Lot trying to pressure the guy on the ball. He's trying to go pressure him, and he's running towards him. He's not running towards Hagelin. Like, if Hagelin doesn't try to, because Hagelin, you see, he makes a deliberate effort to get in front of Latte Lot and intercept his path. He kind of slows down a little bit, and once he sees the path, Latte Lot's trajectory, he speeds up to get there. And the speed that Latte Lot's going, y'all, you don't really appreciate it on the TV screen, but when you're in person and you see this guy run, he is fast. He's really, really, really fast. And even, watching this back, 25% speed, he came in fast. And so I think Hagelin knew what he was doing when he kind of stepped in front to screen. I just don't think, and Andrew Wiebe kind of said this also on Instant Replay. No, Hagelin probably just didn't expect the force that Latte Lot was coming in, the speed that he was coming in, and he wasn't prepared for that kind of contact. And it's a big hit because Latte Lot is running at, how fast these players run. About like 20, 25 miles per hour.
Like physics.
And Newton's laws, guys. Like fast
and
objects.
We haven't even talked about the way that Nick fell too.
Yeah. And it was a fall. Also, I mean, I think, that's a terrible injury. I mean, broken rib is excruciating pain. And that whole situation. But yeah, just going back to the actual play, we were talking about, did he throw up an elbow? Was he, was there any way that is that a red card? Is it a yellow? Whatever. My view is I didn't see him. I saw him bracing for impact. Yeah. Because he wasn't prepared for Hagelin to step in front of him. At the last second, he kind of throws his arm up because if he doesn't do that, he's risking injury. Like, if you don't brace yourself and you collide like that, I think you're risking an injury yourself. Right. And so I think he was just trying to protect himself, and he wasn't trying to throw an elbow in him. I think he was, and Andrew Wiebe said this even, like, I think he was trying to go in with his forearm. Right. And just at that speed, it doesn't matter what you're trying to go in with. I mean, that arm's, it's just not going to support that. So it's horrible because of the injury. Right. And I really feel for Nick Hagelin, and I wish him all the best. And it's a crappy situation. But to me, it's not a red card, at least not from the angles that we have been seeing.
So quickly, you mentioned the way Hagelin fell. Does he kind of feel the contact, do you think? Because to me, I'm just kind of watching it again and again in real time, kind of like you, Henry, at 25x speed. Does Hagelin just kind of throw himself to the ground just a little bit because he comes off his feet? There's no reason to come off your feet if you're kind of hit the way he was hit, right? So does Hagelin kind of try to sell it just a little bit on his end?
Look, I don't want to really speculate about a player who ended up with a broken rib.
Sure, yeah. But just talk about whether it's red card versus red card.
Again, I just don't think he expected Latte Lot to come in that hard. I think he knew he was trying to screen him and keep him away. I just think he underestimated the speed that Latte-Lot was coming in with, and that's a big hit.
Yeah,
and so I think if he knew that was going to happen, he probably wouldn't have made that move to begin with.
I
don't know, man.
I'll say this: somebody's who's been hit very hard in the ribs multiple times. When you get blindsided, with I say blind. No, I just said we're not going to call it blindsided. You know what I mean? That was a figure of speech. When you get hit like that, when you're stepping in the way, you get hit anywhere under your arm, right? Like you're going to have a moment of, oh God, this is going to hurt.
Yeah.
And it's totally valid for you to come off your feet. So I'm not going to sit here and argue that like he tried to sell it or anything. I think he came off his feet because he was like, oh, he's coming in hot and this might actually hurt.
Yeah. And just quick, go ahead.
No, I'm not opposed to, because I say like Dylan had mentioned, like if it were the roles reversed, we'd be screaming for a yellow. Again, I don't care.
Yeah, we would.
My first thought, because I remember every thought that I had in that play, because I was like, oh, Atlanta about to break, but there was a coming together there that we all saw. And in my head, I'm thinking, all right, Atlanta's got numbers forward. Maybe they score here, but I was like, oh, if they score here, this might come back.
Yeah.
Because I thought like, okay, that absolutely could be a foul.
Yeah.
Not a red though. I never thought of a red, during the moment that it happened. And then after seeing the replays, I still don't think it's a red. But yeah, I don't care if you were to get a yellow. I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't be upset about that.
It makes sense. Yeah.
It makes sense. It does. Yeah. And I'm okay with that.
And just to clarify, I'm not saying that to your point, Henry, it's tough to talk about if a player has to go to the hospital with a fractured rib and collapsed lung, and certainly wish Hagelin all the best. But I'm just talking simply from a football standpoint. Is it red card versus red card? That's where I was coming from. I'm by no means making light of the situation that sent Nick Hagelin to the hospital. So just to clarify that, and I'm sure that'll be debated. Andrew Wiebe, I'm sure, has done instant replay, and Henry, you've mentioned this numerous times. So that's been an issue. Probably the biggest issue that came out of Sunday night's match from a officiating standpoint.
And you know what? That did affect the game a lot. And I remember talking with Josh from Cincy Soccer Talk for Across the Pitch. He rated Hagelin very highly. That back three that they have with Hagelin, Robinson, and Miazga, it's a back three of very dependable center backs. And very shortly after Hagelin is forced off, you have Atlanta scoring on the set piece. And then, everything kind of unfolds from there. So from a Cincy perspective, obviously, I can understand why they're upset. I can understand that whole, frustration and wanting, kind of, I guess, retribution for your player. But I can't stress this enough. Latte-Lot, he does not come off as a bad person at all.
No, not at all.
We've talked with him a lot. He's kind of soft-spoken, very genuinely nice person. I really have a hard time believing that he would maliciously go and try to injure a player this way.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve the nasty things that people are calling him online. And yeah, I mean, it's a terrible situation, obviously, for Hagelin, but it just the hate and that kind of stuff has to stop.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you have a couple of, and I'll preface by saying this: every fan base has them, but a couple of trash accounts that happen to have a pretty decent following that run their mouth to get clicks and to get, everything else, that are kind of stirring the pot, pushing the narrative. He's not a bad person. He's not. If they were to look at how in depth Atlanta United, beyond that, Arthur Blank goes into like background checks and like looking into the person behind the athlete, you wouldn't even have a second thought. But then like I'll attest to the guy. Like the dude's a nice guy. Like I've talked to him a handful of times this year, and he's a genuinely like, man, I'm just here for my family. He's very like cautious with like how, his family is around media, things like that. Like he's just a chill guy. Athletes are athletes. you're going to go and you
Yeah.
get caught up in a moment, sure, but he didn't come in and try to lay Nick Hagland out. He didn't come in and try to break somebody's rib. It's a crappy situation. It really is. It's unfortunate. I don't ever
Yeah.
want to see anybody injured like that. I don't care what team you play for.
Yeah.
It just sucks.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Absolutely. But don't go diving in on somebody and
Don't be
giving
an idiot
hate when you don't know them.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about them. That's my biggest thing.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So Latte Lot, we already talked about him. Let's talk about really the night he has from an attacking standpoint. He should have had at least a goal at the very minimum. As
that one chance, man.
Salentano comes out of goal. Miazga, I guess, wasn't expecting it. Latte Lot misses. Miazga goes at Salentano. Salentano kind of chirps back, and that was kind of the back and forth we saw for a few seconds afterwards. He has to be more decisive in that moment. He has to shoot that ball. As soon as he sees Salentano out of goal, maybe try to chip it. Take a shot. Except instead he keeps running. I think he keeps running, and ultimately the chance goes begging. But he should have had one goal. Probably should have had two. Should have had the brace. But this is, yes, he's not gotten the service that he needs as a striker, but he wasn't very clinical. You obviously win, but you want to see your $22 million striker more clinical than he was. And hopefully he can't or won't stick in his head and can kind of come out and make atone for it unless against Orlando. But from a clinical standpoint, I don't think he was disappointing. Again, you win, but you want your striker scoring goals. And this is not how many matches he's not scored. So
I think he struggled to get in much of a routine with Atlanta. I think even in the games that have been really bad over the past 2 months, there's been moments where he has tried to create something out of nothing. And then he doesn't have help to maybe get the assist on a goal.
Right.
But and Tequila said in the chat, I think he got tunnel vision. I think what ends up happening in a situation like this, and I kind of talked about it on Spaces last night, but the dude is a good striker. Good strikers, you have one attribute that's always the same, and that is if they're not scoring goals, they don't feel the best.
Right.
Right? It's maybe call it an ego thing, call it a pride thing, call it whatever you want. That is a Joseph had it. Yakimakis had it, just from an Atlanta perspective. Latte Loth has it. And I feel like maybe he's trying to force that pressure off his back, and maybe he'd made decisions that he shouldn't have had. Yeah. And Gray said you have to have that goldfish memory. And I think Latte Loth has gone now 2 months almost, where it's kind of hard to have that goldfish mentality because there's a lot of pressure.
Like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, I mean, and then you have the $22 million monkey on your shoulder saying, hey, you're supposed to be scoring. Hey, you're supposed to be scoring. So maybe he could have made some better decisions. Absolutely. But I'm not super concerned. I think if the team as a whole can take the momentum from last night, which is a big ask, we have to see what they do against Orlando. Then they go on a road trip. But if they can get some semblance of cohesiveness and chemistry, then I think you're looking at Latte Loth getting back to where he should be, which is, in my opinion, near the top of the Golden Boot race. Now, he's had 2 months of really frustrating service, really frustrating soccer around him. So maybe the Golden Boot race is out of hand at this point. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I think he gets back to scoring goals a lot more often than he has.
But again, it goes back, Tyler, to what we were talking about during the pre-match show. That clutch gene, that takeover gene, does Latte Lot have it? And unfortunately, and I hate to be talking about this after a win, but unfortunately, we haven't seen it. Like, Sunday would have been a perfect opportunity for him to
New York
break
City.
his duck. Yeah, for sure. But it would have been an opportunity. He had a great opportunity to break that duck that he's been on, and unfortunately wasn't able to do so. Certainly should have scored in the first half. Had opportunities throughout the night, which is good, but are you taking those opportunities? And I think the longer this goes, the more you're going to start to ask questions about, we paid this guy how much to come over, and he's only scored 5 goals. I think it's a fair discussion to have, even though.
Yeah.
I mean, this. I was talking with a guy on Twitter about this earlier today, because he was. I think he had a prediction earlier in the season and saying like, "Oh, those Latte Lots, it's an overspend. He's gonna have the same amount of goals as Patrick Ajimon." And he's like, "Oh, well, it looks like my prediction's getting right so far." And I'm like, yeah, I think there's some context behind that that you got to take a look at. Yes, they spent $22 million on him. I'm not mad that they spent that money. I'm mad that, or I'm concerned that the team hasn't really been playing to his strengths. Look at the goals that he scored. We were sold on Latte Lot being a player that runs onto through balls and scores from them. He hasn't scored a goal like that this season yet. And he had a good chance in this game with that ball over the top that, he rounds the keeper and hits side netting, which, that doesn't do him any favors. But Atlanta United, and I looked this up, Atlanta United is last in the league in through balls, 8 through balls this season. That's a striking stat for a team that we were sold on was like, oh yeah, Moranchuk through ball to fast players.
Yep.
To me, does he bear some responsibility for missing the chances he gets or not, taking them fully? Absolutely. But a lot of the problem is with kind of the support system he has that really hasn't figured it out. We saw them start to figure it out in this game and really kind of put something together. But for most of the season, they weren't playing cohesive soccer. That's what we were talking about. It's you're not really creating the right quality of chances for him. Because a lot of his goals were headers or, poacher's dream inside the box, a tap in, whatever. He hasn't really been used the way that his strengths are best used, basically. And I think once this team figures out how to do that, he's going to take off.
Yeah, and really quick, Sydney, before you jump in, I'll throw this out there. Ronnie Dalla mentioned last night one of the things, and I feel like there was so much said last night that maybe it went under the radar a little bit, but Ronnie Dalla said one of the things that they've really been focusing on is not playing the ball directly to guys like Latte Lath and Miggy, Saba, like these speedy guys, right? Like you just said, the whole point, you want to play these guys into space, play the ball into space, let them run. They're faster than just about anybody out there, especially Latte Lath. Like, I don't know that you have a faster player in MLS than that guy. And that's being totally honest. Stop playing the ball directly to them, play it into that space behind the center backs, let them run. And they started trying to do it a lot more last night. Very early on in the game, you saw Slish try to play one to him. It was a great through ball, but he and Latte Lath weren't on the same page. I think because Latte Lath and Miggy were occupying the same area. Latte Lath saw that, and at the last second, right when he turned the other direction when Slish sent the through ball. But it was that idea that was there that we haven't seen a ton of this season. And that's what you want to see. You want to see that cohesiveness coming together. You want to see, your strikers or your forwards, whoever they may be. Jamal Tiara did it perfectly last night. Of course, game state's involved in that. Absolutely.
Right.
But, breaking off from the center backs with that perfectly timed pass to end up in a 1v1 versus the keeper. That's where Atlanta can thrive. 100%. And if they can just get that timing down, get that chemistry down, pick the head up, look and say, all right, boom, this is it. You're going to be looking at a lot more 2, 3, 4 goal games in Atlanta's future for sure. And Latte Lath will be back up there. Absolutely.
How did Alexei Moranchuk play, by the way?
Fire.
What do you guys think of him?
Let the praise be as loud as the criticism.
Was it his best match this season?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that. I would say it's one of his best matches this season.
What was his best match besides this one? I would say, because I said it last week against Philly, and I got cooked. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but I said Atlanta played better against Philly. There were things to build on. Well, the things that I said they need to build on, they did in this game. Moranchuk, now, all of the DPs disappeared in the beginning of the second half. I will say all of them, every single one of them. But Alexi got a couple assists on the night. He kind of talked about how they're working on free kicks, they're working on set piece routines. But he was much more involved in general being a threat in the attack. He was covering a lot more ground.
Yeah.
And the ground that he was covering was more dangerous. And now, again, not without mistakes, but
Sure.
I think it was absolutely his best game of the season.
What do you think, Henry?
I think it was better. I'm glad he finally got his assist on that free kick. It was a good ball.
Yeah.
I want to see more though, and I want to see him specifically play some more through balls. I feel like he has a lot of opportunities to play through balls, but rarely plays them, and it's kind of what baffles me. He had one early in the game, and I think I tweeted it out even, where he has two runners that he can slip in with a through ball, and he instead kind of tries to like lob it out to the sideline, and it goes out, and it was a questionable decision. I wonder if he trusts his through ball. That's a weird thing to say, but I wonder if he trusts his through balls. And I think he needs to take more risks in that sense, and kind of trust a little bit more in his teammates to get on the end of those balls, because he's ultimately the guy that this team was built around. It's not Ate-Lat and it's not Miggy. This team is built around him. It's been said a lot. He is the guy that is going to create these chances. It's going to play these guys through on goal, and he hasn't been doing that so far. But the moment that he kind of gets out of that shell and realizes, yes, I'm the through ball maestro, I'm the guy that's supposed to be generating these plays, I think that's when Atlanta United takes off. So I hope I see a little bit more. Big shout out to Mateus Clich for the through ball he played to TRA on that last goal.
Yeah.
That is what this team needs.
Yeah.
More of those passes.
Yeah.
Because that is how you create high quality chances. It's through balls into space behind back lines. And in that instance, it was TRA that got to it. And, he finished and he did the right thing. But those are the types of chances that Ate-Lat needs also. In addition to balls over the top can work. Like the one that Jay Fortune played for Ate-Lat that led to that one-on-one that he ended up missing. Those work too. Yeah. But basically, more of that behind the back line into space. That's what we were sold on. That's how this team will score goals, because that's how Ate-Lat and Saba and these guys that can really attack at pace, that's how they're going to succeed a lot more.
And the biggest thing is the ball into space, whether it's in the air or not. Like, I always love that beautiful, like, daisy cutter through ball that just leaves two defenders looking like, oh crap, the ball just went by me. But it doesn't matter how it gets there. I mean, of course, you got more to do when you got to read the bounce and all that kind of stuff. But like Ate-Lat, he has shown he's really good at that. Miggy can do it. Really, any of the attackers, maybe, Saba probably the weakest of the three in terms of that, aspect of their game. But like, he can still do it. You just got to get the ball to them into space, not to their feet. Get it out. Let them run. That's the biggest key for me. And like you said, Alexi can do it. Just got to do it more often.
I think it was a good performance. Like you went better, obviously. The turnovers are still an issue for Alexi, but he has an assist, and I think it's something to build on. I think that's an encapsulation of the entire performance. It was a really good performance. It's a winning performance, but obviously, what do you do to build on that when Orlando comes to town? Orlando has been unplayable over the past 12 matches, on a 3-match winning streak at this point in time. Their only 2 losses have been to Philadelphia to start the season, and then NYC FC the third match of the season. Other than that, they haven't dropped. They haven't lost a match all season long. It's a derby. They beat Atlanta 3-0 at home, and now they're looking to sweep the season series at Mercedes-Benz Stadium here on Wednesday. you can't get too high. Like we said earlier, you can't get too high if you're Atlanta United. Orlando's a different opponent, a different match, different night. And if you look at Sunday and say, hey, we're just going to do what we did on Sunday and hope to get a win against Orlando, it's not going to work because Orlando is going to do what we've done to pretty much any other team that they've played and just blow them out to the eights. They scored. There's a stretch, guys. They scored 9 goals in 3 matches before they scored just the 1 goal against Portland. So this is a very lethal team in the attack. We mentioned Atlanta has given up 3 to them. And yeah, it's a derby. And Atlanta United can't just, again, get too high with what they did against Cincinnati and expect to get a win. Agree.
Especially because, and I think if you want to find something alarming about this game, even though it was a win, the alarming thing for me is that 3 of the goals came from non-attackers and none of the goals came from your DPs.
Mm-hmm.
And like people score the goals, whatever, but we're talking about the guys that you're paying millions and millions and millions of dollars for to score goals.
Yeah.
And, you know, Latte La had his chance. Moranchuk is supposed to be the chance creator, sure. I have a massive concern with Miguel Almiron, and I might get some hate for this one. But
look out.
He's a club legend. I'm going to preface this with that. And he deserves that respect. But this season, he's been a shadow of his former self. He has been.
Yeah.
He hasn't lived up to what we expected. We were talking about him being a top 3 winger in MLS coming
Still
back.
are.
Who said that?
I don't think so. I don't think he is.
Season's not over.
Tell me, okay. If he has an improvement and he goes up from here, maybe. But I look at him in this game, and I just think he kind of slows the play down when he gets the ball. He isn't the explosive guy anymore that kind of takes the ball, dribbles past a couple guys, and leaves them in the dust. There was a play that infuriated me where
I think I know the play too.
He received the ball at like the edge of the box, and he just stood there for I think it was a solid 5 or 10 seconds where he just stood there, I think trying to decide what to do. He let the entire Cincy back line get back, the entire defense get back. And you had options. I think you had Saba to one side. You had some runners into the box even, and he just didn't really do anything. He didn't even try to take a shot or anything. He just waited, and then what ended up happening to that ball is that he ended up having to recycle it back. And so my thing is, we've talked about, okay, he's better at the 10. Okay, the wings or whatever. Can he still create chances the way he has before?
He
hasn't shown that.
No.
It's been off. The chance creation that we've come to know and love from him back in 2018, 2017, that isn't translating to now. And I want to be wrong about this. I want him to improve from here, but it's just not encouraging when he gets the ball and you don't see that spark of creativity that you've come to expect from the player that he was back in 2017-18, where he was an MVP contender both times. He was newcomer of the year 2017. Tyler's going to roast me.
And before he does, I mean, we say you can't be any sacred cows. I mean, Miguel Almiron has to be in that discussion, right? I mean, you can't just say he's club legend, he's MLS Cup winner, and
does that justify having him right now on a DP slot? Is my question. Is what he's giving you right now? Does that justify?
Right now, I gotta jump in.
Right now, probably not. Right now, stress on right now. Go ahead, Tyler.
Tyler's about ready to
go ahead.
You can't say everything we just said about Alexi Miranchuk and Latte Lath and the context, the apples and oranges behind this team, and then not say it about Miguel Almiron.
What do you mean?
You can't sit there and say Latte Lath, he needs a little bit more time. Alexi Miranchuk, best game, whatever, or at least it's improving, whatever, and then turn around and take a dump on Miguel Almiron.
Was this a good game for Miguel Almiron?
Dump on anybody.
Was this a good game for him?
Was this what? I'm sorry. What? I don't hear you.
Cincinnati, was this a good game for Miguel Almiron?
No.
No.
But
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
okay, right. But at the same time, you got to put it all in. This is one big bubble. Atlanta has sucked. Miguel Almiron, and even in the really dark days, was at least trying to do things. He was trying to create opportunities. Miguel Almiron was,
but he hasn't,
as a winger who was trying to play the number 10, who was then being pushed back out to be a winger, who then got thrown on the left-hand side. All the meanwhile, the number 10 was not really doing anything either. And nobody's creating chances. Nobody's scoring goals. So it's not just Miggy. If Miggy gets dropped into a competent team, this conversation is had.
Okay, you drop Miggy into Vancouver. Does he perform better?
Yes. Yes.
Is that because
absolutely?
Is that because of him or because of the players around him?
Exactly.
Both. He can't do it on his own, guys. Like, what are we talking about here?
No one's saying.
Tyler, here's the thing, right?
Oh my God,
he's been played at the number 10 this season on a few occasions, and he hasn't. He has one assist, and that was in the first game to Edwin Mosquera.
Right, but everybody else around him is playing like hot garbage.
Okay, so, but you are a designated player on this team. You were expected to be better than the rest. You were expected to contribute more, to be one of the primary chance creators in a position like the number 10. When Ronnie Deila puts you in that number 10 slot, you are expected to be the machine that creates for this team, the one that sets up the teammates, that creates these opportunities. When he was put in that position this season, he was not doing that.
I agree.
At least not to the level that we would expect from a designated player.
Miggy was the only player playing as a number 10 that actually progressed the ball up the field. I'm not going to sit here and look at
did he create
chances.
They made up
chances. What key passes did he have?
No, that's wild to me. All right, I'm not saying Miggy's perfect. I mean, the whole team has been crap. All right, like that's the problem though. He can't do it on his own.
He hasn't really done anything though, Tyler. From a statistical standpoint,
what?
He
has one assist, dude.
Who has?
Okay, but he was brought in to make this team better. Has he made this team better, Miguel Almiron?
Yes. He hasn't. Miguel Almiron
no, he has not.
Who else are you playing
if you take Miguel Almiron out of this team, how significantly worse is Atlanta United?
Significantly. Very significantly.
I don't think so. He barely gives you goals. He doesn't really give you assists. What is he giving you? Other than holding onto the ball and killing some very promising attacks.
Let me ask you this, Tyler. Let me ask you this. If anybody else, Miguel Almiron, different name, did the same exact thing that Miggy's doing this season, 2025, would you still be talking about him in this manner? Yes or no?
Yes. Okay. Alexei Miranchuk is a perfect example.
But hold on.
Everybody's taking a dump on Alexei Miranchuk.
Alexei Miranchuk wasn't here 2 years to start the Lady United.
Matter. It's a different team.
It's not Miguel Almiron. It's Michael Allman, whatever. if he does the same thing,
if there were anybody else besides Miguel Almiron, you would be all over him.
You would not be happy. And look, I'm not saying I'm happy with what Miranchuk's doing.
Too. I didn't say he was perfect. I didn't say he's big.
No one said he's perfect.
Y'all can't say what you said about Miggy and not say it about the other two DPs.
I agree. I agree that there is criticism for all the DPs. I mean, they haven't scored in how many games at this point?
I need another drink. This is wild to me. Y'all are crazy.
All of them deserve criticism, but I'm also saying like Miguel Almiron, especially like I think in this game, it was striking to me just the lack of production that he.
It's not the same. He's not the same.
He's not the same guy from 2017-18, whether we want to accept it or not.
Every other player, y'all would be looking at them and saying, we did it last year with Alexei when he came in. You'd be saying, all right, well, he needs some time to settle in. And we're taking out of the fact, all of consideration of he has not had consistent tactics. He has not had consistent people around him. He hasn't had consistency in any.
But you have to rise above that, though, as a player.
He's been thrown every spot in the front four that you can.
But you have to rise above that, though. You have to rise above that. He hasn't. I think that's the point that Henry and I are making.
The same thing about everybody else, though.
No, I agree. But right now we're talking about Miguel Almiron, right? We're not talking about Miranchuk. We're not talking about Saba. We're talking about Miguel Emerón right now.
And I'm not happy with Moranchuk's output either. I mean, he's also been disappointing, and Latte Lat in recent games also hasn't been up to par. They all deserve criticism.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. I'm including Miggy in this criticism. I'm not trying to single him out as, oh, he is the reason this team is crap. I'm just trying to say, like, yeah, he's a club legend. At the same time, he shares some of this burden. And the way I think of this right now is the opportunity cost of having Miggy here. What if you could have gotten another winger, a pure winger? Because Miggy he himself says that he plays better at the 10, and he hasn't been spectacular at that. If you had gone and gotten a proper right winger, a pure right winger in the transfer window, would this team be better off? I think it would be.
Yeah. I think it's a risk that you don't know, but at least you knew aspects of Miggy that you knew what you were going to get. You at least knew that he's going to be wholly dedicated to the team. Even when the crap's going bad, he's still going to be there. He's still going to have a smile on his face. He's still going to be encouraging the locker room. And to me, that was half the battle, because that was the crap from last year. Yeah. You didn't have anybody else besides Brad Guzan in there, trying to really elevate the locker room and be that guy that elevates everybody around him. Miggy he was brought in for that reason. Alexi wasn't brought in for that reason. Latte Lath wasn't brought in for that reason. Miggy absolutely got a lot of burden to carry, and he's not been perfect. No, but
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. But you need
to be all Miggy just because.
Exactly. I agree.
Really quick, this is my point.
I agree.
You can't look at what Miggy did in 2017 through 2018 and put a different burden on his shoulders just because he's a club legend. You can't do that, because we all said from the get-go, this is a totally different team.
Yeah.
Far and wide, totally different team. If he comes in and knowing what he was to Atlanta and he takes a dump, he knew he was running the risk of tarnishing a little bit of his legacy at this club. But when this man got here, he literally turned to everybody else and said, "Thank you for bringing me back." You can't. I don't know, man. That
no.
I'm not trying to crap on him. I'm giving my criticism of what this season has been for him. I still recognize that he is an important player in this team's history. I just have to say that this season he hasn't been great. That's just my point of view.
And to Tyler's point, and I agree with, I think we're all saying the same thing differently. It has to be a shared responsibility on every single person on this roster to get better. Miguel, Alexi, Saba, Latte Lat, everybody has to share that responsibility. Not one person, not two people, but everybody on the roster. The reason we're bringing up Almiron is because, yes, he's a club legend. He was brought in for the amount of money he was brought in. He's taken the DP slot, but he has to, live up to that DP slot. And I think we can all agree he has not done that. Now, if he was a TAM player, or if he was a pretty high GAM player, we'd be having a different conversation. But he's a designated player, and right now his performances as a whole have not lived up to that DP signing or that DP badge. I think we can all agree on that.
Of course, he's going to go and score a hat trick now that I crapped on him. But
I would love that.
Hey, if you go and score a hat trick against Orlando, I'm
hat trick 2 assists.
Do it. Why not?
That was going to be my next point before you said some crap.
I am never being invited back on this show.
Was whoever comes out in this game against Orlando, whether it's a DP or not, instant legend. Or maybe if it's Miggy again, maybe you just remove all that aforementioned tarnish that y'all try to put on his name.
Come on.
But no, I mean, this is a great opportunity for whoever has a designated player tag in front of their name, or a TAM tag or a homegrown tag, whatever, to give the club some more good vibes before they go on a really crappy road trip.
Yeah. And that's why it was so important to get this win against Cincinnati, to at least look at that and say, hey, we have at least some momentum going into Orlando. And, it's a lot different story rather than you going in there on the 9-match winless streak. think, oh my gosh, we absolutely have to win. Yes, they absolutely have to win, obviously, against Orlando. I mean, you can't sell for anything less than 3 points. Orlando are a classy side, one of the classiest sides in MLS from a results standpoint, and the players understand that. What you did for a lot of the match against Cincinnati that you weren't punished for, you ultimately won. Cincinnati have the means and ways to punish you. And that's going to be a major focus on the training ground, I think, this week heading into Orlando. You know, we gave up X amount of shots. We got maybe a little bit lucky from a defensive standpoint that only 2 went in. So I feel like that's the message that Dylan's going to be hammering into them. The assistant's going to be hammering into them, and the players themselves are going to be really, hopefully holding each other accountable, saying, hey, that's not sustainable. We got to buckle down. And Orlando's coming to our house this time. It's a little opportunity for revenge. We have to get this win before we go away from home for 6 matches in a row.
Miggy created 2 chances last night. I'm just saying.
You're going to die on that hill.
Alexi created 3.
One more than Miggy, by the way.
That is. I don't care which DP's doing it. Just do it.
Yep. Just score the goals.
That's all I care about.
That's all I want.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to hit on?
I think
Yes.
that's it.
No.
I thought there's a lot we could hit on, but I mean, we've hit on.
We spent a lot of time on that on that mild discussion.
I asked earlier if we were going to get a rant tonight. I was not expecting this.
Picking up Tommy's slack for him.
Yep.
You'll come to talk wild stuff.
No, but obviously, big win for Lady United against FC Cincinnati on Sunday. Let's see if they can do it again on Wednesday against Orlando City. The Lions, gentlemen, coming to the Benz for
Big
the
game.
first time since last year. A big game, a huge game, a must-win game.
Is it a must-win?
I think it is.
Okay.
I mean, you're going away for 6 matches. You better win, or otherwise you get to put yourself behind the 8 ball once more, and the goodwill from Saturdays or Sundays is going to be completely out the window.
Fair. This team hasn't had a win streak in a while, so
Yeah,
That's
Be
true.
nice to have
that's
one.
the most important thing. Is
Yeah.
Momentum is, and we talked about it a little bit last night on the takeaways, but momentum, in a bubble inside games is one thing. Atlanta has trouble keeping momentum. We talk about, coming out of the locker room and not really coming out of the locker room until about the 60th minute.
Right.
You can't go into the locker room up 2-0 and then come out forgetting you're playing a soccer game. And then you can't go up 3-1 and then immediately turn around and give up a goal.
Yeah.
You have to take the momentum and grab hold of it and control it. And that doesn't mean necessarily always immediately put your foot on the gas. It means frustrate the other team. It means, get in their head a little bit and then hit them, after they get frustrated. Or there's so many varieties. That's in a game. But now you win a game. You've broken a little bit of a quote unquote curse.
Yeah.
You're playing a derby match at home. You need this win. You really do. You're not coming back here for a month and a half. So, yeah, I mean, I want to see that momentum be held on to. You can't get too high, too low. We talked about it, but you've got to make this a statement. You really do. And you can change the entire vibe going into this road trip.
Atlanta went on two-match winning streaks last season. The second and third match of the year versus New England and Orlando City, and the final 2 matches of the year against the Red Bulls in Orlando City. So
we're due.
Hey, we do. I don't know if that's a message that we should be taking into this set of matches, but we'll see. We'll see. There's a little bit of symmetry there, guys, that you can sort of see. So we'll see what happens.
Curious what the crowd's going to look like on a Wednesday evening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always tough to get them a lot harder to get to the matches on weeknights.
I was
insane.
I was encouraged by the one last night for sure, because it started off and I was like, "Ooh, this is not going to be great," but it filled in really nicely.
Yeah, it did.
Really quick,
It really did.
jumping
What
back
you got?
to this is my final thing, and it is
What you
about
got?
Miggy, so I'm diving back in.
Uh
No.
Oh boy, another half hour. Here we go.
oh.
No, I see people talking about like, oh, the numbers, right? How many goals, how many assists? Some websites do not count hockey assists. They don't count secondary assists for players, which is where your numbers get a little skewed. If you look at the hockey assists, which to me is a very valid stat because it's part of the buildup, it's part of creating opportunities. Miggy's sitting on 3-3. If you don't include the hockey assists, he's sitting on 3-1. So there.
Fudging the numbers.
They don't count in fantasy MLS, so I don't count them. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, it does have value. It does have value. You're right. And so that's some good context to add. I just think maybe I get a bit frustrated just seeing him sometimes have some of those moments, where he just kind of stands on the ball and it feels like he kills plays sometimes, but maybe it's me overreacting, yelling at the TV. Who knows?
I think no matter what, if the team continues to play with at least some semblance of chemistry like they have yesterday and to a degree in the Philly game, I think you start seeing all three of the DPs coming good, much better than they have the first couple of months.
I agree.
Fingers crossed.
I think we're done.
We
do.
Atlanta versus Orlando.
Of podcasting.
Atlanta versus Orlando, Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m., 7:40 p.m. at the Benz. We'll have a pre-match, though, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then 3 takeaways. I will not be at the Benz, guys, for this one. But I think Tyler, you, Jackson, and Henry will be holding it down for 3 takeaways, our coverage from the Benz.
Yes,
so,
indeed.
Stay tuned for that. Stay tuned to scarsandspikes.com. By the way, like, subscribe, share our content on YouTube. Of course, our audio content, as I mentioned, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart. Subscribe there. Just search Scars and Spikes. And Patreon.com/Scars and Spikes as well. Gentlemen, it's been fun.
It has been real.
It's been real.
Say his name.
Who's name?
Miguel. I swear, y'all start treating.
Are you doing some like ASMR right now with the mic? What's going on?
What?
It sounded like you were doing like some ASMR with the mic. You just like got up. Oh, jeez.
Patrick, I guess Orlando City.
We didn't do predictions.
I was about to say that. $20 Patreon tier for the Scarves and Spikes ASMR.
Scarves and Spikes ASMR.
This is so functional. Anyway, 2-0 Atlanta over Orlando.
I got 2-1 Atlanta.
I'll say 2-1 Atlanta. Why not? I was very tempted to say 2-2, but I'm going to say 2-1.
Tommy said 1-1. Gray said 2-0. And I think that's all we got in. So there you go. Back to your ASMR.
What?